There is something about you that nobody talks about, not because it is invisible, not because it is unimportant, but because if you ever fully understood it, your entire life would change. And deep down, you already know it. You have felt it in those quiet moments when the world was asleep, and you were staring at the ceiling, wondering why you could never fit into the life everyone else seemed comfortable living. You have felt it when you achieved something you once prayed for, only to discover that the victory felt strangely incomplete. You have felt it in the tension between who you are and who you know you could become. The truth I have been avoiding about you is this: you are far more powerful than the identity you have accepted. And that realization is dangerous, because once you see it, excuses lose their power, victimhood loses its comfort, fear loses its authority, and suddenly, the future becomes your responsibility. I want you to imagine something. Imagine standing at the edge of a massive ocean just before sunrise. The sky is dark, but not completely. The first light is beginning to break through the horizon. The water stretches endlessly in every direction. Most people would look at that ocean and see uncertainty, but visionaries see opportunity. Entrepreneurs see possibility. Leaders see territory. And the difference between those people and everyone else is not intelligence. It is not luck. It is not privilege. It is perspective. The way they interpret reality changes the reality they create. For years, I believed success was about acquiring more money, more influence, more recognition, more achievements, more proof that I mattered. But after building businesses, creating wealth, meeting people whose names dominate headlines, and standing in rooms most people only dream about entering, I discovered something shocking. The greatest limitation in a person's life is almost never external. It is internal. The prison is rarely around you. The prison is within you, and the bars are made of beliefs, beliefs you inherited, beliefs you absorbed, beliefs you never questioned, beliefs that silently dictate every decision you make. Think about that. Every major outcome in your life began as a thought. Every achievement started as an idea. Every relationship began with a perception. Every failure first existed as an interpretation. Your reality is not built from circumstances. Your reality is built from meaning. And that brings me to the truth you have been avoiding. You keep waiting for permission to become who you already are. You are waiting for confidence before taking action, waiting for certainty before making a move, waiting for approval before expressing your greatness, waiting for validation before trusting your instincts, waiting for evidence before believing in yourself. But confidence is not the cause of action. Confidence is the result of action. Nobody feels ready before they transform. Nobody feels prepared before they become extraordinary. Nobody receives a guarantee before they pursue a dream. The people you admire moved forward while carrying doubt. The people you look up to acted while feeling fear. The people who changed history walked into uncertainty and created certainty through movement, and you can do the same, because the version of you that you secretly imagine becoming is not a fantasy. It is a preview, a glimpse, a signal. Potential is not random. You do not repeatedly envision a greater future by accident. You do not consistently feel called towards something larger without reason. There is a reason certain dreams refuse to leave you alone. There is a reason certain visions keep returning. There is a reason your spirit becomes restless when you settle, because part of you already recognizes what your conscious mind is still debating. You were not designed merely to survive. You were designed to create, to build, to lead, to expand, to become. The tragedy is that most people spend their entire lives negotiating with their limitations instead of expanding their possibilities. They become experts at explaining why something cannot be done, experts at defending mediocrity, experts at lowering expectations, experts at shrinking dreams until they fit inside comfortable realities, and then they wonder why life feels small. Life feels small because they have become smaller than their potential. Do not make that mistake. The world does not reward hesitation. The world rewards courage, not perfect courage, not fearless courage. Just enough courage to take the next step, just enough courage to begin, just enough courage to refuse surrender. I remember a period in my life when everything appeared successful from the outside. The business was growing, the opportunities were increasing, the income was rising, yet internally I felt trapped. Because I had become addicted to proving my worth instead of expressing my purpose. There is a difference. When you are trying to prove your worth, you chase approval. When you know your worth, you chase purpose. One comes from insecurity, the other comes from certainty. And many people spend years climbing ladders, only to discover the ladder was leaning against the wrong wall. Do not spend your life collecting achievements that leave your soul empty. Build something meaningful. Build something aligned. Build something that reflects who you truly are, because success without alignment feels like failure in disguise. The truth I have been avoiding about you is that your next breakthrough is not waiting in the future. It is waiting in a decision. A decision to stop shrinking. A decision to stop doubting. A decision to stop apologizing for ambition. A decision to stop treating your potential like a secret. Everything changes when identity changes. A person who sees themselves as powerful behaves differently. A person who sees themselves as valuable chooses differently. A person who sees themselves as capable acts differently. Your future is hidden inside your self-image. Champ the image. Champ the future. Most people try to change outcomes. Very few change identity. That is why most transformations never last. Temporary actions cannot create permanent results. Only a transformed self can create a transformed life. Look at your life honestly. Where have you been playing small? Where have you accepted less than you deserve? Where have you convinced yourself that average is enough? Where have you mistaken comfort for peace? Where have you confused safety with fulfillment? Those questions matter because your answers reveal the gap between your current reality and your highest possibility, and that gap is where your future lives. You are closer than you think, not because the journey is easy, not because the obstacles are small, but because the greatest obstacle has always been your perception of yourself. The moment that changes, everything else begins to shift. Opportunities appear, ideas multiply, relationships improve, energy increases, momentum accelerates. Not because the world changed, because you changed. And when a person changes internally, reality begins reorganizing itself around their new identity. That is the secret nobody teaches. The external world is often responding to the internal world. The results you desire are frequently waiting on the person you must become. So stop asking whether you are capable. Ask whether you are willing. Stop asking whether success is possible. Ask whether you are committed. Stop asking whether you have what it takes. Ask whether you will finally use what you already possess. Because the truth I have been avoiding about you is that your greatest limitation has never been a lack of talent. It has never been a lack of opportunity. It has never been a lack of potential. It has been a lack of permission. Permission that only you can give yourself. And today that permission begins. The truth I have been avoiding about you is not a comfortable truth. It is not the kind of truth that allows you to stay exactly where you are while convincing yourself that someday everything will magically change. It is not the kind of truth that lets you blame circumstances forever. It is not the kind of truth that lets you point at the economy, your past, your family, your critics, your failures, or your bad luck. No, the truth I have been avoiding about you is much more powerful than that. The truth is that there is a version of you living inside your mind right now that is waiting to be released into reality, not next year, not when conditions become perfect, not when everybody finally understands you. Right now. That version of you has been whispering for years. You have heard that voice. You heard it when you wanted to start something, but talked yourself out of it. You heard it when you knew you deserved more but settled for less. You heard it when you looked at successful people and felt something strange inside your chest. It was not jealousy. It was recognition, because a part of you recognized your own unrealized potential. A part of you saw what was possible. A part of you knew you were looking at evidence of what human beings can become when they stop negotiating with fear. Most people spend their lives trying to silence that voice. They distract themselves, they entertain themselves, they numb themselves. They convince themselves they are being realistic. But realism has destroyed more dreams than failure ever could. People call it realism when they abandon their ambitions. People call it realism when they settle. People call it realism when they stop believing. But what they really mean is this: I no longer trust myself enough to pursue what I truly want. And that is one of the most expensive decisions a human being can make, because every day you spend disconnected from your highest potential is a day you cannot get back. Think about that. Time is the one resource even billionaires cannot purchase. They can buy companies, they can buy houses, they can buy influence, they can buy luxury, but they cannot buy another yesterday. Once a day disappears, it disappears forever. And yet millions of people casually trade away years of their lives living beneath their potential. Years become decades, decades become lifetimes, dreams become regrets, and one day they wake up wondering where the time went. Do not become one of those people. Do not arrive at the end of your journey carrying the weight of unrealized greatness. Do not become a museum of abandoned dreams. Become a monument to courage, because courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is moving while fear is present. Fear will always exist. Even now, even after success, even after achievement, even after wealth, even after recognition, every new level introduces a new fear. The fear never disappears. The difference is that successful people stop treating fear like a stop sign. They start treating it like a compass. They understand something most people never learn. Fear often points directly toward growth. The things that intimidate you the most often contain the greatest opportunities for transformation. Think about the first time you spoke in front of people. Think about the first time you took a major risk. Think about the first time you stepped into unfamiliar territory. Your heart raced, your hands shook, your mind questioned everything. And yet after you survived it, something happened. You expanded, your confidence increased. Your identity evolved, your world became bigger. Growth always demands discomfort. The caterpillar cannot become a butterfly while remaining comfortable. The seed cannot become a tree while remaining safe underground. The coal cannot become a diamond without pressure. Transformation requires tension. And maybe that is exactly where you are right now. Maybe life feels uncomfortable. Maybe things are changing. Maybe old identities are breaking apart. Maybe certain relationships no longer fit. Maybe old habits are losing their grip. Maybe the life you once accepted no longer satisfies you. Good, that discomfort may not be punishment. It may be preparation, because every major transformation begins with dissatisfaction. Nobody changes when they are completely comfortable. Nobody evolves when they are fully satisfied with mediocrity. Nobody discovers greatness while remaining committed to average. Something inside you becomes restless. Something begins demanding more. Something starts whispering that there must be another level. And that whisper is important, because it is the sound of your future calling you forward. Listen carefully. Your future is speaking to you every single day, not through words, through desires, through visions, through ambitions, through intuition, through the dreams that refuse to leave you alone. There is a reason certain goals continue appearing in your mind. There is a reason certain ideas keep returning. There is a reason certain possibilities excite you. Those things are clues, signals, mas. Indicators pointing toward the life you were meant to create. Most people ignore those signals. They choose certainty over possibility, comfort over growth, security over fulfillment. And then they spend years wondering why they feel empty, because the soul was designed for expansion. You were built to grow. You were built to create. You were built to become more than you were yesterday. That is why achievement feels satisfying. That is why progress feels rewarding. That is why overcoming obstacles creates confidence. Your spirit understands something your fears often forget. You are stronger than you think. Far stronger. You have survived things that once seemed impossible. You have endured difficult seasons. You have faced disappointment. You have experienced setbacks. You have encountered uncertainty. And yet here you are, still standing, still breathing, still searching, still fighting, still moving. That alone should tell you something important. You are more resilient than you realize. There is a power inside you that has carried you through every challenge up to this moment. The question is not whether that power exists. The question is whether you will finally trust it. Because trust changes everything. The moment you trust yourself, your decisions change. The moment your decisions change, your actions change. The moment your actions change, your results change. And the moment your results change, your entire life begins moving in a different direction. People often think transformation is dramatic. They imagine one giant breakthrough, one massive opportunity, one life-changing moment. But real transformation usually begins quietly. It begins with a decision, a simple decision, a decision to stop doubting yourself, a decision to stop shrinking your dreams, a decision to stop living according to other people's expectations, a decision to stop waiting. That decision may seem small, but it changes everything. Because every extraordinary life is built upon ordinary decisions repeated consistently. The entrepreneur who built an empire started with one decision. The athlete who became a champion started with one decision. The artist who changed culture started with one decision. The leader who inspired millions started with one decision. And now it is your turn, not tomorrow, not someday, today. Because the future you want is not created someday. It is created by what you do today. Every action matters, every choice matters, every hour matters, every habit matters, every thought matters. Your future is not an accident waiting to happen. It is a construction project happening right now, brick by brick, decision by decision, day by day. You are building something, whether you realize it or not. The question is what you are building. Are you building excuses, or are you building confidence? Are you building limitations? Or are you building possibilities? Are you building doubt? Or are you building belief? Because what you repeatedly build eventually becomes your reality. And that brings us back to the truth. The truth I have been avoiding about you. The truth that has been staring at you from the mirror for years. The truth that explains your restlessness. The truth that explains your dissatisfaction. The truth that explains why average has never felt enough. The truth is that you were never meant to spend your life hiding from your own greatness. You were never meant to shrink yourself so others could feel comfortable. You were never meant to silence your ambitions. You were never meant to betray your potential. You were never meant to live a life dictated by fear. You were meant to become. And becoming is a lifelong journey. It never ends. Every level reveals another level. Every victory reveals another possibility. Every breakthrough reveals another horizon. That is the beauty of growth. There is always more wisdom, more strength, more confidence, more impact, more abundance, more life. The person you are today is not your final form. You are still evolving, still expanding, still discovering, still becoming. And one day, if you remain committed to that journey, you will look back at this version of yourself and smile. Not because this version was weak, but because this version finally decided to stop running from the truth that everything changes when you decide to believe in the person you were always capable of becoming. And that moment, that decision, that transformation may begin right now, and if you are listening carefully, you can feel it. You can feel that something is shifting, not outside of you, inside of you, because the greatest transformations are invisible before they become visible. The tallest buildings in the world begin beneath the surface. The strongest trees develop roots before branches. The most extraordinary success stories begin long before anyone notices them. And the same is true for you. What you are becoming cannot always be measured by what people see. Sometimes growth looks like silence. Sometimes growth looks like patience. Sometimes growth looks like discipline. Sometimes growth looks like refusing to quit when quitting would be easier. The world celebrates visible victories, but destiny is built during invisible battles. Nobody applauds the mornings when you wake up and keep going despite doubt. Nobody sees the nights when you choose growth over comfort. Nobody witnesses the internal wars you fight against fear, insecurity, procrastination, and limitation. But those moments matter. In fact, those moments matter more than almost anything else. Because your character is not created when everyone is watching. Your character is created when nobody is watching. And there is something I need you to understand. The version of you that is capable of creating extraordinary wealth, extraordinary impact, extraordinary success, and extraordinary fulfillment already exists. You are not creating that person from nothing. You are uncovering that person. You are removing the layers. The layers of fear, the layers of doubt, the layers of conditioning, the layers of limitation. Think about that for a moment. A sculptor does not create a masterpiece by adding random pieces. A sculptor reveals a masterpiece by removing everything that does not belong, and Maybe that is exactly what life is doing with you right now. Maybe life is removing things, removing distractions, removing false identities, removing unhealthy attachments, removing limiting beliefs, removing people who no longer belong in your future, removing habits that cannot travel with you to your next level. At first, removal feels like loss, but later you discover it was preparation. You discover that life was not taking something from you. Life was making room for something greater, because abundance cannot fully enter a life that is overcrowded with limitation. You must create space, space for growth, space for possibility, space for new opportunities, space for a larger vision. The people who transform their lives understand this principle. They do not cling to old versions of themselves. They evolve, they adapt, they expand, and every expansion requires a release. You cannot become your future self while remaining attached to your past self. One must eventually give way to the other. That is why transformation feels uncomfortable. Part of you is dying, not physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. The old identity is losing power, and the new identity is demanding to emerge. The old identity says, stay where it is safe. The new identity says, move forward. The old identity says, what if you fail? The new identity says, what if you succeed? The old identity focuses on risk. The new identity focuses on opportunity. The old identity seeks permission. The new identity takes responsibility. Every day, these voices compete for control, and whichever voice you feed becomes stronger. That is why your environment matters. That is why your thoughts matter. That is why your habits matter. Everything influences identity. Everything influences momentum. Everything influences direction. You become what you repeatedly expose yourself to. If you surround yourself with limitation, limitation begins to feel normal. If you surround yourself with possibility, possibility begins to feel normal. If you surround yourself with fear, fear becomes familiar. If you surround yourself with growth, growth becomes inevitable. Most people underestimate the power of environment. They think success is only about effort, but effort placed in the wrong environment often struggles to thrive. A seed planted in poor soil cannot reach its full potential. Likewise, a powerful mind surrounded by negativity will constantly battle unnecessary resistance. Protect your mind, protect your focus, protect your vision, protect your energy, because your future depends on what you consistently allow into your world. There will always be people who doubt you, people who question your ambition, people who criticize your goals, people who laugh at your vision. Do not be surprised by this. The extraordinary has always appeared unrealistic to the ordinary. Every major breakthrough in human history was doubted before it was celebrated. Every great entrepreneur was questioned before being admired. Every visionary was misunderstood before being recognized. The crowd rarely sees the future before it arrives. That is why vision requires faith. You must believe before evidence appears. You must commit before certainty exists. You must act before guarantees are available. And that is difficult, but it is also what separates dreamers from creators. Dreamers imagine possibilities. Creators build them. Dreamers wait for ideal conditions. Creators move despite imperfect conditions. Dreamers hope. Creators decide. And everything changes the moment a decision becomes stronger than an excuse. Let me tell you something most people learn too late. Your life is moving in the direction of your strongest beliefs, not your wishes, not your intentions, not your temporary motivation, your beliefs. If you believe opportunities are scarce, you will see scarcity everywhere. If you believe success belongs to other people, you will unconsciously sabotage your own progress. If you believe you are incapable, your actions will eventually confirm that belief. But if you believe abundance exists, if you believe growth is possible, if you believe transformation can happen, if you believe your future can become greater than your past, then your mind begins searching for evidence. Your actions begin aligning with possibility, and your results begin changing accordingly. That is the hidden power of belief. Belief influences behavior. Behavior influences outcomes. Outcomes influence destiny. This is why successful people guard their mindsets so fiercely. They understand that every empire is first built in the mind. Every fortune begins as a thought. Every achievement begins as a belief. The external world eventually reflects the internal world. Not instantly, not magically, but consistently. What dominates your mind eventually influences your reality. So ask yourself honestly, what story have you been telling yourself? What narrative has been controlling your decisions? Have you been telling yourself you are unlucky? Have you been telling yourself it is too late? Have you been telling yourself you missed your chance? Have you been telling yourself other people are more talented, more connected, more fortunate? If so, stop, because those stories are not facts. They are interpretations. And interpretations can change. The moment you change the story, you change the future. You are not behind, you are not finished, you are not disqualified, you are not destined for mediocrity, you are not defined by your mistakes, you are not trapped by your past, you are not limited by your current circumstances. Those are illusions created by temporary conditions. And temporary conditions were never meant to become permanent identities. You are bigger than your circumstances, stronger than your fears, more capable than your doubts, and more powerful than you currently realize. The truth I have been avoiding about you is becoming impossible to ignore now. You were never meant to live as a spectator. You were meant to become a creator, a builder, a leader, a visionary, a force. The world does not need another person hiding their gifts. The world does not need another person settling for less. The world does not need another person abandoning their potential. The world needs people who are willing to step into their power, people who are willing to dream boldly, people who are willing to act courageously, people who are willing to become who they were born to be, and perhaps that person is you. Perhaps this moment is not random. Perhaps the restlessness you feel is not an accident. Perhaps the dissatisfaction you feel is not a problem. Perhaps it is a signal that your current life can no longer contain the future trying to emerge from within you, a signal that something greater is calling, a signal that your next chapter is waiting, and when that chapter begins, everything changes, not because the world suddenly becomes easier, but because you finally become stronger than the excuses that once held you back.